welcome everyone again to the Free Big podcast. This time we're switching to English because we have a guest that comes from outside of Spain. So welcome, Emmanuel. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Gracias.
So Emmanuel, he is founder and CEO of Scenario, which is one of the hottest startups on GenAI. So please, Manuel, can you tell us a little bit about you and your company, how you started, how you got into all of this?
Yeah, sure. So again, Emmanuel, I live in San Francisco. I'm the founder of Scenario.com. It's pretty easy, which is a seed stage 20 people company, specifically developing a platform for game studios and game creators so they can AI generate the content they need for their games.
How did it all start? Like GenAI started making waves a couple of years ago. Were you already working on it? Did it come, after it started with kind of DALL-E? Tell us a little bit about the beginnings.
Yeah, this is my second company actually. So I'm a kind of a repeat entrepreneur. And the first one was processing tons of drone data, 2D and 3D data captured from the sky, hundreds and millions actually of images. And so that was my first company, which I sold in 2017. And then I told myself, why don't we use the phones to scan the world and create content by scanning? It would be a natural evolution from these drones to our phones in everyone's pocket. So my dream initially in 2021 was to let everyone be a 3D creator by scanning their stuff, rooms and objects and everything. So all that 3D content could land into games. And so Scenario started as a 3D scanning company. And then in mid-2022, that's when GenAI started becoming really hot. We saw Midjourney, we saw Stable Diffusion, obviously, we saw ChatGPT and so on. And we realized the new way of making content would probably not be scanning because it takes some time and you can mess it up quickly. So the new way of making content would be prompting, whether it's 2D, 3D, audio and videos and so on. We had to pivot. And so that's where in late 2022, Scenario became a fully GenAI company, but still making content for games, if that makes sense.
Why did you took this focus on games? What did you see different about them compared to other, let's say, more traditional use cases of graphics?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. The first off, when we started Scenario in 2021, it was all about the metaverse, right? Meta rebranding and many other, hot concept around the metaverse. And the metaverse requires a lot of 3D content, and so there is a big need to facilitate the creation of 3D content for games and for the metaverse. Okay, that's why we had this initial, approach towards gaming. But when we switched to GenAI, what we realized is gaming is the most, I think, interesting use case for GenAI for a few reasons. Gaming has so many. First off, gaming spends like a lot of money on content. Half of the budget of a game studio typically goes to content. And it's not one single type of content. It's every type, 2D, 3D, audio, video, text, VFX, and the list goes on. So it's many types of games, many types of media, and many genres. You have, the casual, cartoon, JRPG, realistic, voxel style, pixel art, and so on. So it's a lot to address, and I think that's where GenAI shines, when you can have this, the capability to explore so many venues, so many medias, and so many genres easily. So that's it's not an easy use case, but I think it's a very interesting use case.
Today the gaming industry seems to be dominated, at least from a tech perspective, from the likes of Unreal, how do you see third parties playing into that ecosystem? Do you see yourself like plugging into those big engines, or can they become like a competitor to what you are doing?
Yeah. So when you're building a game, you obviously have to rely on a game engine today. The two main ones are Unity and Unreal.
Yeah.
And there are a few others like Godot, which is an open source one, and there are a few others as well. Some large game companies like Roblox, they have their own engine, but it's not the majority of them. You gotta have a certain scale. Okay, and these are physics engine. So you gotta bring the content that you make, that you buy somewhere else into the physics engine, or the rendering engine, I would say. And the role of the engine is to organize the content. That's how when you are in a first shooter movie, you don't see the enemy behind the wall, because the engine is rendering things properly, foreground, background, and so on. So all these engines do not deal with creating the content; they deal with organizing rendering the content. Our vision is that there will be a new way to develop games, very dynamic games, where the content will be created live within the game. And it's UGC, it's user-generated content, but powered by AI. So a player playing would typically create or see content that are highly personalized per the user. And that, I call it a new type of engine, which is a content generation engine, and it will probably coexist with Unity and Unreal as physics engines.
Okay, that's very interesting. So in your opinion, this is not only about optimizing current processes, it's also about generating something completely new, which is allowing users to create new assets on the fly as needed?
Yes.
Okay. What has been so far your traction, the technology that you used? Like in general, how are you proceeding? How do you develop tools that are useful to game studios?
So you're right. You just mentioned that scenario can be used, or GenAI in general can be used by a game developer or a game artist before the game is being shipped.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of optimizing / replacing the current processes with AI-powered processes. So far, very, very few games have been able to build dynamically generated content within the games. And UGC is it's a golden goose, right? It's holy grail. I mean, look at Roblox and Minecraft and Fortnite now and Rec Room and many others. It's like very, very successful games, but it's only a handful of them.
Mm-hmm.
Why? It's because you have a huge gap between the players. Anybody can play. 1 billion, $2 billion people play on the planet. Not everybody can create. And that's why there are only 10 million creators on Roblox. But what if we lower the barrier or the complexity, I would say, of creating for anybody to be a creator, even within the game? That should open UGC to literally thousands and hundreds of thousands of games. So that's studios have noticed this, and they're very interested to open UGC via AI. Okay. But the challenge is, you at FreePeak developed some GenAI product, and it's not always easy to guide the AI, and so the number one challenge for game studios, whether they use it in pre-production or in production, it's all about consistency and control and guidance over the AI.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what guided our choice, our technical choice at Scenario. Like build a platform where the studio has the most advanced control over their AI.
Okay, tell us a bit more about that, because that's obviously a huge challenge today. Okay, you go to an AI, we have all been blown away. You can type, I want a girl or a man standing under a tree, something, and you get plenty of images made up. And for the listeners, at least the way I see it, how it's working today, is it has this huge database of original content that was used to train. Okay, it was used coupled with some text. Okay, and you train it so that if you type the same text that was paired with a particular image on your training, you kind of get the same image. And what is really spectacular is that the system is able to interpolate in a way. Okay, so it's able to create new concept, not copying and pasting pixels, but copying and pasting concepts, so to say. But it's obviously, with text, very, very difficult to guide the aesthetic choices of the image. You can You can explain the general style that you want, but it's very difficult to keep like the same face, for example, on different images. Do you tackle that? How do you help designers?
There are many ways, and we have one. We go into one direction, and there might be others that are even being developed right now. But it's definitely like if you are building a GenAI startup right now, or a GenAI product, you should think about consistency, guidance, and control, not about cost and speed. I mean, sure, cost and speed matters, but consistency, control, and guidance are more important. So there is a concept that people might not be too familiar, which is the concept of latent space. Okay, so let's take an analogy. The latent space is like a huge universe with like billions and billions of coordinates, points, and every coordinate in that space is one image. Okay, and so when you're prompting, you are basically asking the AI to find you one of these coordinates and to find the image that corresponds to the coordinates. But if you have that image in mind, but you don't know the coordinates, it's literally impossible to find the coordinates just with prompting. It's like statistically impossible. You're going to spend your entire life, and you'd better like go play mega lottery or like Mega Million, whatever. Mm-hmm. You have more chances to win. So it's all about for users to navigate that latent space and understand where to find the coordinates they love the most. So take a game that has a very, let's say, cartoonish, casual, childish kind of style. Okay, these images probably belong to a certain part of the latent space. Okay, and so you can refine an AI model to only work within that part of the latent space and find you and propose coordinates that are in this specific section. And so how we do so today is by letting people train their own fine-tunes. So people, designers, artists, developers, they bring data to fine-tune a base model, which is Stable Diffusion today. It could be other models tomorrow. And by fine-tuning the model, the AI will only focus on that part of the latent space. And so you don't risk of falling, everywhere that you don't want to. So that's one way to guide the AI, is to force the AI to focus on some parts.
So that will be a way to reduce the space of possibilities. But I still see challenging, and that's something that you can do also with fine-tunes. I want you to talk a little bit more about that. Even if you refine the search to a certain style, how do you keep consistency within that style?
So it's the art of fine-tuning, which is, in my opinion, the future. I mean, base models are magic, right? Like all these base models we've seen. I mean, DALL-E is one of them. Stable Diffusion was the most important open source one. They're magic, but it's a one-size-fits-all today, mostly. And it can fit a lot of cases. But when you go into advanced cases, gaming is one of them, you need to go into fine-tuning, which is, I think, the future. You have two types of consistency. The first one is style consistency, and the second one is subject consistency. And when you fine-tune a model, then you got to decide whether you're looking for a broad fine-tune that is supposed to do a bit of everything, such as like every object in your game or every environment, every background in your game should go from that model. Or instead, you want to do a very, very targeted fine-tune that will do just one object or one level or one season or one campaign, whatever. So there is a strategy when you fine-tune to relate your training data and your fine-tuning strategy with your goal. You cannot, the same way you cannot have one model that does everything, you cannot have a fine-tune that does everything as well. And so we're entering an era where model engineering might be a thing as much as prompt engineering was a thing, at least in 2023. And how you organize this fine-tuned model together is going to be very interesting. It's huge creativity, huge creative opportunities.
And, for people that are listening here, fine-tuning a model may sound like something highly technical. how does it? How do you do it in scenario?
So it can be technical, sure. It's math and training AI and so on. We obviously try to make it super easy to everyone. It can be done on the web, so any device. You don't need a super powerful GPU computer and so on. No, it's like any computer connected to the internet. You drag and drop a certain number of images onto scenario in the right place. You just select a few settings, such as you want to train a style or you want to train a subject. If you want, you can refine the captioning, which is the labeling of your training data. We're talking about 20 images, 10, 20 images, sometimes 5 images even. And then you just initiate the training, which is going to take between 30 minutes to a few hours, depending on how many images you put. And then you have your fine-tune ready to be prompted.
Okay. Listen, at FreePick, we did once, like as a test, a beta product that was an avatar generator. Okay. We didn't use LoRa's fine-tuning. Okay. The way we did it is with a single image using more like an IP adapter.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about this trade-off and why you choose in particular to go with LoRa's. For those who don't know, so can you also explain what is a LoRa in simple terms?
Yeah. So LoRa, fine-tune in that case, in simple terms, it's like an add-on to the base model. It's like, think of for those who remember their math lesson at school. It's a base model is a huge matrix, and a LoRa is a mini matrix that you attach to the base matrix, and combined, it's going to force the base model to go in a certain direction thanks to the add-on. It's just as an image, right? And so you can have as many LoRa's as you want, and you can even combine these LoRa's together. You just add these little add-ons on top of the base model. You mentioned that there are other ways to force the model to generate consistent imagery. You could use reference images. So no training of any fine-tune. You just use the base model and one single image. That's what Stabilization has made with, and it's not Stability, but that's what people have developed with IP adapter.
That's it.
It's one other approach to consistency, and it works pretty well. But you're never going to have the same, flexibility and variability that you might need sometimes. You're never going to have that flexibility with one image. So what I'm realizing is one reference image is a first approach to consistency. LoRa is a second approach to or fine-tuning is a second approach to consistency. Fine-tuning is more complex. Requires a bit there is a learning curve, but it will take you further away.
Mm-hmm.
So the two are quite complementary. If you're a new user, use a single reference image to guide your AI. If you're an advanced user, start considering fine-tuning, and you can even do both.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's, by the way, these things are being invented as we speak right now. Refined and
it's pretty interesting to keep up with everything that is coming.
It's pretty exhausting to keep up, I would say.
Something that is also getting a lot of traction lately is we talk about the style consistency, but it's also, you mentioned it, like object consistency in a way. And of course, there are many potential use cases beyond video games. People that work in marketing, they very often have photos of products and they want to put it like on different mock-ups, on different scenarios that are live. Have you explored that? Did you ever get into the temptation to go to other use cases other than gaming?
Oh, absolutely. I think from what I'm seeing, about 30%-ish of the users on scenario.com, they're not strictly gaming. We've seen comic book creators, we've seen graphic novelists, some marketers, and so on. We're not quite specialized on highly detailed photorealistic generations. Mm-hmm. We can do it, but very few games are highly photorealistic. Most games are stylized, but we've seen such examples. So I'm not closing the door at all. I'm very happy to see these edge cases. Just as an entrepreneur, I have to focus on the first niche or first market, and I think gaming is a very interesting one. I also believe gaming is, if you look back, gaming has very often has been an industry kind of exploring and setting the standard for other industries, including for GPUs, including for 3D engines that are being used for movies now, and more. So it's not it's not impossible that from gaming we expand broadly. Sorry.
Okay, and how do you see the traction in gaming? Like, how is it going? How many? To me, that's very interesting because in my career, I always did companies that were kind of B2C.
Yep.
I always made products that you consume, self-service. And to me, it's always been like very challenging to get kind of B2B is a different brain that I don't have. So how do you do it? I mean, how do you get in touch with them? What has been the reaction to this?
So the reaction is very good. I mean, sure, there are controversies and questions about GenAI and the use of GenAI and how it's going to transform the people's work. But overall, studios are extremely bullish and interested in the technology. They're just evaluating which one they should start with: text, images, 3D, and so on. I've seen last year, it's already Stone Age for GenAI, but Andreessen Horowitz, the VC firm, they published a research showing that even last year, 87% of studios were already using GenAI, and 99% were expecting to use GenAI this year. So we might be at 100 now, 99.9%. And among these, even last year, 70% were planning on training their own models. They were planning on, I mean,
70%?
70% of studios
training their own models.
Yeah.
Not just using the technology, but
specifically developing their own models for their games. Oh. These models could be text models, like NPCs having a specific dialogue with players, but these models could also be image models, and because they've all tested the main base models, and they've all been pretty impressed about that dog on the moon with a spacesuit. Okay, that's pretty impressive. But now when they want their own moon, their own spacesuit style, and their own dog, they probably have to. Either they spend days and hours and weeks and years prompting, or they fine-tune their models. So when a studio realizes they can go beyond the base models, they typically have a journey, which is starting from concept art, which is the easiest use case. Mm-hmm. It's not as sensitive as production data. You can explore more easily. From concepting, they go into production-ready assets, which is the asset or the image is good enough to be put into a game, to marketing assets, i.e. using the same models not to make game visuals, but marketing visuals for the game, and a lot of free-to-play has insane marketing costs. So GenAI can help reducing the marketing costs, or A/B test a lot of marketing options. And finally, they consider also doing some live AI generation in the game. But it's you cannot going into a studio or a game creator and say you should fine-tune a model and put it in your game right away. That's a bit steep. Yeah. So there is a discovery journey, and we can reach out by many channels, whether it's directly or via partners. And
listen, a few months ago there was a bit of controversy over Steam ruling out from their shop all the games that use GenAI. What's the status on that? And in general, I mean, it brings a question over the legal uncertainties that around GenAI. So
yes, it's an interesting topic. So Steam rolled back. I mean, they load AI-based game into the Steam store. They have put some, I think, pretty smart rules in place where they ask the developer to disclose the use of AI. And they, of course, still put a lot of barrier around using somebody else's IP. Okay, let's take an example. If you are an indie dev and you do an AI-powered Mario Bros. Game, yeah, you're going to be struck down by Steam, and it makes complete sense. Same if you're using Pixar, IPs and Disney IPs and so on. But AI-powered games are now authorized in Steam. So we speak with a lot of legal teams at game studios, even AAAs, and smaller studios. And what we hear from the legal counsels and so on is, clarity is not there yet. It's still moving a lot. There are still class actions and lawsuits going on, and they will take years. But game studio consider that if they train their own model based on their own art, even if it's a fine tune, these fine tunes are going to make art per their style that they own already. So they stay in the same IP ecosystem or environment, and it makes them feel better, feel safer. So they feel they're on the safe side with fine tuning.
So they feel that they are in a safe place if they fine tune a base model with their own images. But there is still this open question. Okay, is like the foundational model, is it allowed? Because obviously it has used images from all over the place.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm going to make a bit of a prediction. I know it's very dangerous, especially on record, and I've been wrong so many times.
Go ahead.
But base models are being improved on a more monthly basis, and I'm pretty sure we're going to see, like maybe in a few years, maybe even sooner than that most, if not all, base models will have somewhat licensed data. The legal cases are going to take years to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear. We're in the US. We're in San Francisco right now. Supreme Court might have to say something. It's going to take 4 to 5 years. Yeah. 4 to 5 years in AI, it's like science fiction. So it's obvious the base model will have been improved by then. For a startup like us, and maybe it applies to FreePick as well, we focus on validating the workflows. That's what matters the most for the end user, for the game creator, for the game studio. And then, of course, whenever a better base model is available, the workflow should integrate that new base model or these new, tools that can complement the workflow. So that's my approach today. Of course, we try to do things right with fine-tuning. We, contrary to many others, do not use the input data to retrain models. Mm-hmm. So all the data from customers is siloed. It's private by default. It's not being shared and so on. That makes them feel good as well. Mm-hmm. And we pay attention to the new generation of base models that are coming. And they're coming fast.
It's not a prediction, but how I think things can work out is, I think there can be like an atomic bomb coming to the GenAI world, which can be the leaders of, some important countries deciding that you need copyright to train the models. I think that will be a setback, but I think it will delay things 1 year tops. Like, given the speed this thing is going on, I think it will be challenging it can be on images, especially. It is feasible to license enough images to create a good model. Mm-hmm. Okay, mm-hmm. That's always skipping the text tower. So that people understand, image models, they have an image tower and a text tower. The text tower is the one that you use to understand text, to convert this text into a point, into that big universe. Okay?
It's labeling. Exactly. Labeling the images.
Yeah, you need to convert the text into a point, into the embedding, the latent space. And then you pick up this embedding and you get back an image using the image tower. Okay, but the text tower, technically speaking, most of the time people are using Clip or T5 from Google. It's one of those big models. Universally, those models, they have been trained on text that was available on the internet and where there is no way today to create a model like this exclusively based on opt-in data, on data that people give you a license. Okay, you just need too much data. Okay, so on those models, people usually use an opt-out option. Okay, so if you don't like your text to be used, you can opt out.
New York
On
Times,
images,
New York Times,
New York
you know,
Times, for example,
you know,
exactly.
blocking.
On images, it's feasible to do an opt-in model to only get data images that you have obtained the license, but I don't think it's possible on text. So I think if this happens, if it becomes illegal, it can go through a Napster, phase kind of. You remember when Napster came out, then it was illegal and there was a void. Okay, and there were some clearly legal options that started popping up, like Kazam, Mule, and a few others. But it took a few years until a fully legally option like Spotify emerged. I think in the future there will be. I mean, it will be fully legal, fully understood. I don't know if it's illegal today. I honestly,
No one knows.
No one knows.
No one knows.
Which is so artists are pissed off and they are pointing out that it's illegal. I don't think it's clear still that it's illegal.
It's not every artist that's pissed off. You know, like some artists understand the controversy, but they also understand GenAI is yet another tool of creativity for them. And GenAI is not creatively creating by itself. And so artists, like truly AI-powered artists, have found ways to do really crazy stuff and games and visuals by leveraging AI and their own creativity. And so sure, like you have the you have the pros, you have the fanatics and so on, but I see AI as a tool, I'm a heavy user myself. I'm not a game artist, but I'm a heavy AI user. I was not born with drawing skills at all, but I'm a fairly creative person. And I use AI to express that creativity. Like, how good is this? Probably it's great. I mean, I'm not saying I'm doing great art, but at least I'm really enjoying this, and I think other people can do as well. Another thing I would say, like, big revolutions are always controversial. That's the reality of things. Like, look back, big revolutions that matter for us as for humanity have been controversial. Crypto is you can still debate the interest of crypto and so on, but like decentralized organizations are a little revolution, and it's been very controversial, especially for governments. So the same could apply with GenAI, and we're gonna have to probably reinvent a few frameworks with GenAI.
Okay, it's funny that it can affect copyright in multiple ways, right? The way I think about it, it's maybe a bit similar to photography. Like at the beginning, I always use this example. I don't know if you think it's right, but to take a photo is actually trivial, right? You press a button. I mean, you can think about it. People that don't know photography think it's about pressing a button. So technically, it's very, very easy to take a photo. The difficult part is to find something interesting to put in that image. Okay, and that's what makes a photographer. And up until recently, I was surprised how recent. I think it was like this. It was late this century that it was before. I don't know if it was the 60s or something like that. When you took a photo, it was not the copyright of the photographer. It was like there was no copyright over that because they assumed that there was no human creativity into taking this photo. Think of how ridiculous it sounds now. Okay. And I think we are going to go through the same steps kind of on GenAI. To me, I've seen real artists creating what I think it's art with GenAI, and this was their tool, their brush. Okay.
A new brush. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But today, it seems like, at least in the US, you cannot copyright what you create with GenAI. I mean, you have been through that because obviously your customers, they need to copyright their work.
Game studios need copyrights. At least they need to protect the games they do. They don't want the games to be copied immediately or, ripped off. So far, in the US, I'm less familiar with the other continents. Sorry, the Copyright Office has denied all copyright applications. With a few exceptions, there is an artist, Chris from New York, that made a comic book, and copyright was denied, but she managed to get the whole book protected, but not the individual images which were made with AI.
So that's I Create Life on Twitter.
I Create Life,
please.
yes, yes. But if you show up at the Copyright Office with one image you make with just a prompt, and you describe how you made that image with a prompt, you're very likely going to be denied copyright. The US Copyright Office considers prompting alone, as it is today, is not creative enough. Even if it's like a half a page prompt, that's what they're going to tell you. That's what they've been telling people. They're not closed though, and they are moving fast, and they might serve as an example for other copyright offices in the world. And so there is like a process right now where they're asking companies to provide remarks, comments, and so on. And what they're communicating is if the artist can prove enough effort or creativity or input, then they're not closed about granting copyright to AI-enabled or AI-powered images, art, contents. So we as a company actually applied just a few weeks ago we sent a copyright demand, an application for 20 visuals that were made on Scenario using fine-tuning, leveraging hand-drawn artist images. And so the output resembles the training images. It's not trivial. You select your training data, you label the training data. It takes a few hours sometimes, Then you prompt and so on. So we're going to see what the copyright says about it, what the copyright office, says about it. And maybe it's denied, maybe we appeal, maybe we win, maybe other people are doing it at the same time as we speak. This is public information anyway. But it's moving.
Yeah. So good luck with that trial. We are running out of time, but one last question. Here we are. You come from France. Okay, I come from Spain, and here we are in San Francisco. Okay, what do you think about the AI, Gen AI scene in Europe and in general technology in Europe versus the US? I mean, you've been on both sides.
Yes.
What's your take?
I've been on both sides. I love both sides. I've seen pros and cons on both sides. The beauty of San Francisco is basically everything's allowed. You can do whatever you want as long as you have energy, creative energy, and ambition. And that's why there is like a renaissance in San Francisco, despite it was pretty dire during COVID. AI companies are flocking into SF. They're getting funded. There is like 160 meetups per month about AI in SF. It's 5 per day, including weekends. Yeah. I mean, look at any capital in Europe would get 5 meetups per month, So it's very, very vibrant. But Europe is good in, generally speaking. Europeans are very creative, artistically speaking. They might not have the most, the business ambition might not be as strong as it is here in SF or in the US, but they are very creative people, and including engineers, actually. The way engineers code and build products is much more creative than in the US. And so that's, I think, being able to leverage both sides is a huge opportunity. That's what we do. My tech team is in France. Customers are all over the world. And then Europe has a great education system as well, free. And so we train great engineers, AI scientists as well.
Don't you find a bit paradoxical that we have a great education system, great engineers, and nevertheless, we have not been able to create companies that have the size of our American counterparts?
There are many reasons for this. It could be a whole podcast. Huh? So one easy explanation is the fact that the US celebrate trial and failure. They really do authorized entrepreneur, even like creators, to try and fail. And if they fail, it's gonna be a strength for the person that tried, because they're gonna learn from this failure, and the next project they start probably will not go into the same sort of problems. While in Europe, generally speaking, failure is a black spot. Like it's not a great achievement at all. So that's why, I mean, Scenario pivoted from the first idea to the second idea, the scanning to prompting. I don't think I could have made that pivot in Europe. But because in the US, it was completely okay to my US partners and investors to present a complete change, a complete evolution of the company. It was encouraged. I don't know. It's definitely a big topic of interest. And happy to have another podcast with you guys one day. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Manuel, for having you here. And all the best. Okay?
Thank you very much.
We are into interesting times. Thank you.